Welcome to the High Sensory Mothers podcast with Karen Hunt, a supportive space dedicated to mothers with high sensory intelligence. Each week, I'll share insights from my own experiences and those of my clients, alongside empowering conversations with inspiring guests who offer practical wisdom and guidance. Together, we'll help you embrace your sensitivity so you can thrive, not just in motherhood, but in your life and business too. Hello and welcome to episode 11 of the High Sensory Mothers podcast. I'm your host, Karen Hunt. Today I want to revisit boundaries. I did an episode on boundaries, episode 3, I believe, and that's a good place to go if you want to go a little bit more in depth. This is more of a quick episode. I'm just sort of following up a little bit on the topic of boundaries, which is an incredibly important one for us, typically as HSPs, highly sensitive people, or high sensory people, as I like to call us. So we often think that we know when a boundary needs to be set, but whether we do or not, obviously, is another story. The trouble is, a lot of us, as sensitive women and mothers, by the time we realise or notice that we should have set a boundary, it's already a bit late. So I want to sort of dive into that a little bit. So as I said, in episode 3, we explored boundaries in depth, why they're so important for us, and also how to begin practicing them. So you might want to go listen to that episode too. But this time I'd like to touch upon the moment when you know that you need a boundary in place. So you'll be aware, again, I always talk about self-awareness as being sort of the first step. If you're quiet and honest with yourself, you will notice when your body or your energy or your emotions signal that a boundary is needed. So let's have a look at when this can happen and what those signs might be that you could quite easily miss if you're not fully in the moment. So are you aware of a time when you might feel some resentment? You can sort of feel it rising up in your body. It might come from the pit of your stomach and it comes up through your solar plexus into your heart space, and then there's a constriction that happens. This is what I notice in myself. And then there's this sort of low grade resentment. It may not be a massive feeling, but it's there if you pay attention. So you might say yes to something that you don't really want to do, and then you have that feeling of instant regret, or there's this sinking feeling. So again, it's sort of the opposite thing that I find. If I'd say yes, then that feeling from my heart will kind of sink lower into my body. The other thing that you might find happens to you is that if you're with someone who constantly oversteps your boundaries, or someone who you need to put in place boundaries that you don't currently, wherever you sit on that scale, you might even feel tired before you even have a conversation with them. There could be this deep breath and constriction that you feel in your chest, in your heart area, where you're just anxiously waiting for the requests that you don't want to say yes to, but you find yourself saying yes to. Someone who you might just find exhausts you before you even see them. Just the thought of them is going to make you feel exhausted. That's another sign to look out for. Another thing you might experience is just simply feeling invisible, like you don't even matter, or that it's irrelevant if you say no because it's just not even acknowledged. It's just blasted by and they just don't care. They are the opposite of sensitive. they're insensitive, they're focused on themselves, and what they want is what you tend to give them because that's the pattern that you've got. It's easier that way. You may have these people-pleasing tendencies, and they could be bullies. They could be very dominant, self-centered. Again, there's a scale, isn't there, of different people at different places along this. And so it's important for you to recognize that. And it really doesn't matter how subtle these signs are, these clues are in your body. It doesn't matter. They're there if you are willing to listen to them. Some people, it's going to be way more obvious than others, but it's important that you recognize them regardless of how severe the repercussions are for you by not setting or respecting your own boundaries. Perhaps you have a recurring expectation or event or something that you do that just fills you with dread. Every time it's the same. You have this feeling of dread, but then you feel guilty for feeling it. You know, maybe you'll justify to yourself, oh, they're not that bad. Why do I feel like this? I shouldn't feel this way. These are all signals to you, and they're certainly not weaknesses. They are gifts. And the sooner that we really notice them, accept them, and honor them, the sooner that we can direct our energy in the ways that we want to make the lives that we choose for ourselves and for others, and let's be honest, to make the world a better place, the sooner we do that, we can redirect our energy in those ways. So I think it's important to reframe this. So do listen to these signals, do pay attention to them. So let's address some sort of common myths or phrases that we might hear in our own heads and feelings that we have. And let's just address these because it really doesn't have to be this way. You're not a bad person for setting boundaries. You're not a bad person for expecting other people to respect you and your boundaries. So things that you might say to yourself could be something like, I should just be able to handle this. Why can't I do this? I should be able to do this. You're not respecting yourself and your own energy, your own strengths and weaknesses, limitations, abilities. You know, you are a unique person. You are not like anyone else on the planet. You have some things in common with other people, but each of us is unique. And there's no reason to expect that we should all be able to do all the things that ever come our way or someone else asks us to do. It's just not realistic. It's not practical. And so if there's something that you find so difficult and you can't handle it, then so be it. There are other things that you will be able to handle beautifully, other things that will really make use of your strengths and your gifts. And so what's going to be helpful is to redirect that understanding and those practices there for you. Another thing you might hear yourself saying is, I just don't want to be selfish. So again, someone else has a desire or a need, and they're asking you to meet those needs or fulfill that desire for them. Maybe you can do it. Maybe you have the capacity to do it. But again, if your energy is directed in someone else's desire, even not even a need or a preference, then that means you can't direct the energy that you have to fulfill what you need to do, to be the person you want to be, to make the difference you want to be. So it isn't selfish, it's just being sensible. If we look at ourselves not as an individual, but as multiple parts of a whole, then doesn't it make sense for each part of the whole to understand what it's good for, what its role is to fulfill that? It doesn't make sense, for example, for, a fingernail cell to try and beat your heart. It's a different cell. It's got a different job, a different role. If they were all to sort of mix up and try and do a different role, we would be in a mess. We need to stick to what it is that we're here for. And I think if you can look at it from a different perspective, I like to zoom out to the big picture before zooming back into the details, then for me, that's a really helpful reframe of how to look at it. You're not actually being selfish. You're making a positive contribution to the world by investing your energy into what's important to you, what you're here to do. This is another one that I know I've said in the past. I mean, honestly, I've said all of these. So, don't feel bad if you also can relate to all of these. It's not a big deal. It's fine. And just the way I say that, oh, it's fine, I can do it. It just conveys this energy of, yes, I have the time, I can do it. But is it something that I really should be doing? Probably not. Not with that attitude, not with that way of speaking. You can feel it in the energy of the words. So as HSPs, we're very good at picking up on these subtleties. So we can hear in the tone of voice, and we can hear it in our own tone of voice, in our own mind, before we even say the words. We know. If we pay attention, we can feel that. So another one, it can be confusing because you can feel that maybe it's not just about being selfish. Maybe it's about caring for other people. So you might feel like you're saying or thinking, if I really cared about them, I'd say yes. Well, I don't think that's true. First of all, you have to care about yourself first. That's the first priority. And it can get confusing when we have needs to look after other people. But ultimately, we are the only ones that we spend our entire lives with. From birth until death, it's just us. And it's important that we really, really feel that and understand that so that we can prioritize ourselves. It's not about being selfish. It's not about, spending 10 hours a day in a spa and literally doing nothing for anybody ever. It's about understanding that we do have quite significant needs to nurture ourselves so that we can be in our best energy to make the best contribution. As we're more sensitive than other people, we actually do need more time to care for ourselves, and we tend to be the ones that have the least amount of time to care for ourselves. So it's not about caring. We deeply, deeply care for others. So again, that's a common thought, but it's not accurate, is it? Fear will lead you sometimes as well. If you think to yourself, saying no is only going to make things worse, so I'll just do it. It's easier that way. I also recognize this too. Sometimes it's a way of avoiding having the tricky conversations or making big changes in your life or even small changes in your life. And it feels easier in the moment just to say yes, because you just don't want the drama, you don't want the energy drain, you don't want to deal with these tricky situations. And I totally get that. However, if you do that consistently over the long term, it doesn't end well. That will make things worse. So I'm not suggesting that you have to tackle everything all the time, straight away. It is a process. As I always say, it's a longer journey and you do need to do it a step at a time. And I would suggest doing it with the support that you need is really important. But it is something that you can change. And it might be small to start with, and that's okay. You only need to make small incremental changes over the short run, and eventually that will lead into massive changes in the long run. Really avoiding, these discomforts in the short term will kind of multiply the problem later on. And conversely, by addressing these problems or these issues that you have with boundaries now, and slowly build one step at a time, again, that multiplies, but in a really positive way. So make sure you think of boundaries more as porous, living things. In the previous episode, we talked about sort of, the hard lines and then the no lines and the porous ones in the middle. And it's about finding a way with it. I see it a bit like an amoeba, this fluid shape. And again, it's all about looking to ourselves, connecting inwards, and making small changes. And it's okay to do that. If you're communicating with yourself, first of all, and then with other people around this, that's all you need to do. It's going to change. They are going to change. You're going to change. Your boundaries will need to change. They move, they flex, they evolve. And the most important thing is that you need them to honor your energy. That's what they're there for. We want your energy directed in the right place, right? We don't want to focus our energies on the negative stuff, on keeping the status quo at the expense of not going for what it is that you want, not living the life that you want to live. You want a meaningful life, you want a meaningful business, you want to make that positive difference in the world, you want to have an enjoyable and beautiful family relationship with your spouse, with your children, with your friends. You want that community around you. You want all these good things. You're not looking for something bad or negative. You're not looking to harm anyone. You're looking to make everything better. And these boundaries can help you do that. So just a couple of suggestions for simple scripts that you can use for boundaries. So when you get invited to something or to do something, you could say, "Oh, thanks so much. That's kind of you to ask. I'm not able to say yes right now, but I'll get back to you soon." Or you could say something like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not available for that, but I hope it goes really well." You might want to say something more like, "I need to have some quiet time right now, but I will follow up with you when I can. Thank you." Or, "I can't this week because I'm prioritizing my energy, but thank you for asking and I appreciate your understanding." These are some suggestions for the essence of what it is you're trying to convey. You meet them with kindness, you meet them with gratitude and appreciation. And then you can just say, "No, not right now." Whichever way works for you. Some people will want to specify why, and others don't want to or don't feel the need to. Personally, I don't feel the need to explain. Although having said that, I used to feel the need to explain. And even now, sometimes I might write a message to someone and read this long message of all the explanations and then delete them. So it can be useful for me just to get it out of my head, to get the reasons out so I can feel justified in why I'm saying what I'm saying. But actually, that's really about me communicating with myself first. They don't actually need to hear that, see that, read that. It's not about them, that's about me. All they need to hear is, "Thank you, I appreciate you, no." And so that's the message that they will receive from me. But I'm clear in my energy as to why I'm saying what I'm saying. And that's really important, because it really isn't just about how they hear what you're saying. It's about how you feel when you say it and after you say it, because it just helps you take another small step in the direction of, this is where I'm going, this is my vision, this is how I'm directing my energy. So it's a really empowering way of redirecting yourself, making that course correction, if you like. So I'm just going to leave you with a thought, a reflection, a prompt, if you like. You can journal on it or just consider it. Where am I waiting for things to get worse before I honor what I already know? Where am I waiting for things to get worse before I honor what I already know? If you'd like to share what comes up for you, I'd love to hear that from you. But just remember that you really do not need to wait for full-on exhaustion or burnout to justify your boundaries. You are absolutely allowed, and I would say required, to respond before your body gives up, breaks, burns out. Please be kind to yourself, listen to yourself, and enact those boundaries. I hope that's helpful. And if you want to know more about boundaries, I'd refer you back to episode 3 as well. Okay, thanks so much again, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now. Enjoyed today's episode? If you haven't already, I'd be so grateful if you could subscribe and leave a quick review. It really does help other high sensory mothers discover this podcast. To stay connected, visit my website where you can sign up to receive episode updates straight to your inbox. Or book a free call if you're curious about working together. Thanks so much for listening, and I look forward to next time when I'll share more insights on embracing your high sensory gifts.